All right. I'm Vipanchika. I'm currently pursuing my PhD at Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Before that, I did my master's from the same center at JNU, and I did my graduation from Miranda House, which is in University of Delhi. I come from Telangana.
So my first question to you was, how did you decide what you were going to write in your prompts, and how did you decide to make it concise and just navigate that process?
Hmm. Um, so to make it clear, first of all, I'm a Rhodes Finalist, which means that I went to the final interview, and I did not get the scholarship, but I did go through the written round and the first round, which is the academic, and the last round is going to be something called as a personality round. Regarding what I put in and what I did not, I did take help from somebody called as Project Edu Access. There are two Rhodes scholars over there who helped us throughout the process, and there were four of us from Project Edu Access who went till the final interview, and it's them, I think, who gave us the most inputs in terms of what to put and what not to. Going by how my statement changed when I first gave it to them, and then later, the edits that they suggested, it looks like they didn't want me to sort of write about a lot of stories, because as we see, there's no one um, uh, one life event that really changes everything in your life, but there are multiple things that keep happening in your life and uh, might lead you to sort of make a decision of applying to the roads. So that there, I think I was told that it's better if I keep my statement sort of focused rather than talking about multiple things, which makes it difficult for the reader to understand what really is happening with your life. So yes, of course, the way to sort of tailor our statements is by following the prompts that are given, which is available freely, which I believe Shrishti will put on the link to it in the YouTube. So yeah, so if you just follow these prompts, then I think it will be easier for us. Just to make it clear for somebody who don't know how this Rhodes Scholarship process really happens. So the August 1st is the deadline each year. I don't know when it starts because I submit it one day before the deadline usually. So August 1st, this year it's going to be 2023, and just look out for it when it is there. And so we have to submit two things for them, that is a personal statement and an academic statement. In my time, which is just last year, personal statement was of 750 words and academic statement was of 350 words, and that's the maximum limit. They're not going to take in more. So you have to make sure that you really answer the prompts that are there, like just to read out the prompts that are there in the information for candidates, which is there available online for everybody. They ask you three things, and that is: one, which Rhodes Scholar quality do you display most strongly, and how are the other contexts and people helping you to develop the others? So this is quite clear what they're expecting you in a personal statement. For instance, how which quality of yours is, because there are like four qualities I think they are looking for, which is also available online. You can just look it up. Um, and you are supposed to probably give a story in your personal statement. Some of them have talked about the kind of violence that they might have went through as, let's say, queer people in their own households and society, and how that sort of uh, help them to sort of go beyond and want to go to a country where at least there's freedom, and also there's that sort of dignity that is also given to these people. So things like these, it could be any story, but it need not necessarily be personal or intimate also. So it could be very random, that you can just say how I have written, for instance, as to why is it that I'm interested in studying punishment and justice. Is not something that just I mean, the prompt to do that, the reason that I started reading that, I said in my statement, is because I just happened to read some books and I was very interested. So it wasn't really anything personal. Of course, there are a lot of stories, because it was a really good process for me. The entire writing process is because I started to really think like what really went through the entirety of my life that I happened to sort of choose on and settle on this topic of punishment and justice. And it sort of gave me a lot of insights in terms of how, for instance, when I was the president in Miranda House residence, there was this movement against curfew. And when I was the president, it was sort of broken. The curfew was abolished under my presidency, and all of this movement that I was part of for the 3 years of my graduation really helped me to sort of think about how unfreedoms can be really, problematic, and they can be usually those that come from a position where powerful sort of try to put certain people coming from a certain gender, class, caste in a certain kind of a it, kind of a disadvantage. So from there, sort of my interest also in terms of punishing, because this being understood as punishment because you are a woman and therefore you can't get out of your hostel after a certain point of time, sort of also influenced how I thought about it. And later the protests of anti-CA and all, and a lot of people going inside jails have obviously triggered to anybody, I'm sure, about how to think about revisiting the idea of these, concepts of justice and punishment. So that's my story, although the story was not something that came to me immediately, because I was actually thinking, why is it that I'm interested in it? Because you really don't know when you're doing things that there's a reason behind why you're doing certain things. But for me, reading one book by Angela Davis, I really got inspired. And that's how my personal statement starts as well. That this is, I started to read a couple of books, and that's when my interest began in really pursuing it. Although I do have an interest in terms of these other things that happened late before in my life. So yes, there's because the question is about how to tailor, how to write your answers, and how to not include certain aspects in it. Obviously, I think you should think deeply about which quality of viewers, like the prompt says, that really reflects. And for me, as I said, my quality was one of leadership. It wasn't quite easy to do certain things that I've done in my college. So I talked about those. But again, you don't really have to be a leader. You don't really have to be the president for any of the clubs or anything in order to apply to Rhodes. That's not true, because people who got in, I know they were some of them are not in the leadership positions. You can be doing anything, and you can still be a leader. You can be somebody who is just a class mentor, for instance, or anything else. But it's important that you focus on your story. What is it that you really did? There might be some small incident that you thought is not very relevant, but if you think about it deeply, perhaps that will give you sort of chance to explain yourself, as in why is it that you really are fit for the Rhodes Scholarship, which they say stand for justice and other things. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So my second question was about how were you able to show through your statement that you were a well-rounded person? Because Rhodes generally looks for academic excellence and extracurriculars and moral integrity.
Right. This question is about extracurriculars, right? Okay. So I do play ukulele and do hula hooping. So that's one thing that I talked about in my personal statement. But that's not something I really am an expert in. So there might be people who are like trained in some kind of music, Hindustani music and all that. And I'm not one person who really did that. I'm sure if any of you is also like this and are hesitant to apply, just do apply. If you're somebody who is merely into reading, or somebody who's not ever got the chance to do any extracurriculars, because to do extracurriculars also means that you need to have certain privilege, certain time, so that you can pursue them. So it's fine. That's not what they are really like looking for, I must say, because in my statement, when I mentioned about my ukulele and hula hooping, it was also in the context of my own story about being a leader and how I went to the protest and how I took a ukulele with me. So it was just a random mention to just say that I am part of the extracurriculars. And the reason why I did that, of course, like any of you, is because I really wanted to get the scholarship. So I wanted to fulfill those criteria that they're looking for. But as I understand it, in the Rhodes final interview, when I met all the finalists, it looked like nobody really gave a lot of stress on talking about their extracurriculars. One of my friends who's um, good at football and plays them in certain teams did not get selected. So it doesn't mean really that if you're good at your extracurriculars or if you have them, you get selected. And if you don't, you don't. That's not the criteria. But if your story goes well and if you show that you're somebody who have the abilities to become a Rhodes Scholar, that is to pursue justice, which is what they're seeing, then I think you can come across as a good candidate. Just a bit about the previous question. Um, also is that, like I said, there's a personal statement and the academic statement, because we talked a lot about personal statement when we are talking about extracurriculars and also the qualities. I just thought academic statement, I'm not sure if it's going to be there this year or not, because they have multiple things like being edited every other year. So if it's there, I had actually 350 words back then, and I was applying for a DPhil. So how I wrote my academic statement is that I kept in mind that what they're looking for. 350 words is quite less. So you have to, since it's a DPhil that I'm applying to, I had to explain in a couple of sentences what my proposal is going to be about. So they know that I have a clarity, because DPhil over there is for like 4 years. And coming from like JNU, where I don't write dissertation, obviously I have to show my credibility in terms of how I can write well. And within 350 words, obviously nobody can really show that you're writing well as well, because academic papers tend to be longer. The more you write is the better, is how it goes. But I had to just show, because these are the people who might not be experts in my area per se, although they will give people, to the experts only, the academic statements usually. So, but then it's better you clarify yourself more than making it complicated. So that's the way of writing academic statement. Although they say it's academic, make it more simple and try to make it very clarificatory. And if anybody is applying for DPhil, I think obviously these are things you must have seen somewhere else, but you have to mention which supervisor you want to work with. And if you already had a word with them, then you have to mention that. If the reply is positive that they want to supervise you, then that's even more better. You can just mention that, so they know that there's somebody in the faculty who's actually already interested in you. And then you can also talk about why only Oxford, why only that department. Let's say if I applied for politics department, there is a politics department here in India, everywhere that we see. So why is it that I'm not applying here but abroad? So these are certain things that you can clarify. To just mention, if anybody is looking for certain kind of answers, is one, there's no sort of institutional support that you see in the universities here in India for whatever political reasons. So you can just mention that, and you can talk about, I don't know, if you have to do some archival study and you'll have them in UK in their British library, so that could be one of the reasons. So I'm sure you'll find a lot of reasons once you really think that that's where you really want to go. So that's the way you sort of write your academic statement as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you want me to send you another link, because only 10 minutes of the meeting is left apparently? That's what it
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I think we can do one more question and then you can send a link. I think we'll finish it in it.
So since you already covered academic, what you have to do in an academic statement, I'll just skip to the other question I had. So yeah, how much time did you spend on your application? Like how many months, and what was the most challenging part of the application?
Okay. I did spend perhaps like a month. No, I think I spent 2 months of my time, but it's not that I was spending only on that. Obviously, you will be doing multiple things when you're applying. So I was told, so I think this is one of the Rhodes scholars whom I listened to, I think it's Anupriya, who told that we have to keep like half an hour time of yours every single day to um, to just think about these prompts that are there. So it's not easy to get at a story. I mean, I just told how my life journey has been now, because I actually thought about it a lot before writing to the Rhodes Scholarship. I initially thought when I was looking at these videos that it will be really easy for me to write, but it was quite difficult because there was no way that you can join the dots. and it was quite complicated in that sense. Obviously, to look back to your own journey was in itself a challenging part, because um, now you have to look at it in an entirely fresh light, like, and to make it all a story, it is obviously difficult, because that's not how, as I said, that's not how your life is. It's not ready made that this something happened and then you apply for roles. There's obviously multiple things happening. I think that part of reconciling so many stories was quite difficult, but I did get help from Project Edu Access in terms of how I can edit it. And if you have a third person, it's best if you talk to somebody else. It's not just Project Edu Access, it could be anybody. You could talk to your mother, you could talk to your friends. I sat with my brother, who's also a PhD scholar in JNU. With him, I was just sitting and asking him, what do you think are good qualities about me? What do you think are not? And these are the things that I ask others, because they know, they observe us much more than we, sort of understand ourselves. So yeah, I think that is how you have to basically go about with it. And the challenging part is, like, everything about it is challenging, but I think it's very rewarding as well towards the end, whether or not you get the scholarship, whether or not you get through even the written round. It's because now you have, if you basically are ready with a Rhodes statement, both personal and academic, you are ready for any kind of, applications abroad. It could be US, UK, no matter which university, because the prompts are made in such a way and they're very clearly told. It'll be really helpful for you if you really want to go abroad and that's where you want to do your studies further. It's definitely a good thing to do, to apply to Rhodes, just at least so you get a proper personal statement in your hand, which you can apply later. So yeah, although it is a challenging part, um, to like sort of revisit your story and understand yourself, it surely is rewarding. So
Okay, thank you. I think we can do more questions because it's still going so. So my other question was, yeah, how was the interview process for you? What would you have done differently if there was something?
so we had two rounds of interviews. One was the academic round where so everybody usually gets a curated panel. So I was in a panel which is politics, economics, and business, and others had law, something else. So you have a panel that is curated in terms of what you had read previously. So clearly, because I was in political science, I had somebody from political science on my panel sitting, and it's quite, we will not be told who it is. Some of them got the information one, like, literally on the day or something like that, but otherwise it's quite secretive. Nobody really knows who comes, who goes. So in the process, my academic interview had questions directly from the proposal, like, as in the academic statement, the 350 words that I had written, basically that becomes the focus for the academic round. Personal statement is usually not talked about in the first round. So they literally read the lines that you have written and they ask you questions based on that. So they're not going to usually go beyond what you have written. So you have to also be mindful in that sense that whatever you are writing is going to be questioned and carefully, like, question. They want to really understand if it's you who had written, first of all, and two, if you really mean these things, or is it just that you had written because you have to write something to just flaunt and, like, get your way through the written round. So it's important that, like, when I had written about why I want to do a PhD in um, under some supervisor, then they ask me questions on, like, on the work of the supervisor, to know if I really have read those works or not. Other than that, they have mm, yeah, so they have also asked questions about how I did mention Foucault in one of the, like, frameworks of mine, and then they asked me about the critique, and I did mention. So you should be aware of those things also. When you're mentioning somebody, you should know the critiques as well, because merely admiring is not the academic kind of a work that you do. So I immediately mentioned the name. I said, yes, Agamben did talk about and sort of, critiqued and extended this sort of a understanding that we are given. So immediately the person did understand that I know what I'm talking about. It's not that I merely read like one or two works, but I really have the grip on what I'm saying. But the challenging part of the academic interview was that since it's like a panel. It's a composite panel, like politics, economics, and business. So there were people from economics and business who had like questions that come from their area of discipline, of course, because they want to look at it in their perspective. So they asked me, how is it that you're going to come back to India and do, like, what is it that you're going to do after coming to you come to India? So I said I'll become an academic, and that wasn't a satisfactory answer for them, because the business person is actually looking for me to tell about some, that I would do some enterprising. So I was asked again and again this question. So they want me to push in this direction. But then I said, no, I really am not interested in doing anything other than that. Not really interested in perhaps establishing an NGO to help the prisoners and all that, because I don't think that's my area of, expertise. I don't think I am capable of doing those things. I'm perhaps more capable of writing, which perhaps can later help in sort of, in the action that might help people. So that's something also they would look at you, so that are you really sure about your own future plans, or are you still like dwindling here and there, that okay, I might do that, I might also do this. So instead of that, if you know for sure that this is what I'm going to do, obviously that's going to change. I might end up establishing some NGO and do help like business, but they want to at that point know whether or not you are sure about it. So you have to stand your ground. That's my academic interview. I was talking about academic round, then there's going to be a personality round. That is the final interview, where the questions are usually based on what you had written in your personal statement. So there also they generally ask you questions from what you have written and nothing beyond that. And it's important also that you are a little bit aware of current affairs, like start reading newspaper if you don't do that. And because I would like to see, because I had a question on, so I wrote a paper on securitization of environment somewhere in a journal, and they asked me about the COP meetings that were happening, it like literally on the day of the interview. So they were just asking me about what do you think the outcome would be. I had written the paper almost like 2 years ago. So I was not really entirely ready to be prepared, ready to be to answer that question, because it's been quite a long time since I read environment. So thanks to me, at least looking at the newspapers, I just know what was happening and I could answer the question. So there's going to be whatever you write in your CV, by the way, they are not going to leave it lightly. Every single thing that you had written will be asked about, and they'll ask you about, what you have learned. So one way that I prepared for both the interviews, especially the last interview, is to so if you had written the CV that you have submitted, the CV should be only for 2 pages. That's a limit that they give. So you have to, let's say I was a research intern at a foreign policy research institute. So I have to write what did I do, and then I have to write what did I learn, and what were the challenges that I faced, and how do I think that this institution can perhaps do better, or it could change certain things, so we understand it in different way. So certain questions you have to pose like this, the questions that you yourself make. These are the questions, the basic ones that I made. About every such experience, you need to have answers ready already. So that's the proper way of going about with your personality round interview, because here you don't have to read Foucault and all that. However, sometimes some mishaps happen, in the sense that I was asked about ukulele playing in my academic interview, and then I was asked a lot of academic questions in the final interview. So that will also obviously happen. There's not going to be a strict separation as such, because obviously these are in a way interlinked for students, because your personal life is obviously influenced by the academic and vice versa. So that is something you have to keep in mind when preparing for the Rhodes interview. So yeah.
So the last question was, how did you navigate alternatives to the Rhodes Scholarship? Did you still apply to Oxford, look for funding?
Right. So about me, so I thought I would apply to Oxford only if I get Rhodes Scholarship. So that was my aim. So it was not Oxford really that was my aim, but it was Rhodes that I was aiming at. So after the Rhodes happened, I did not apply to Oxford. And it's usually easy to get into Oxford, especially if you have already been to the final round of interview. But otherwise also, no matter, even if you got the interview call or have applied, it's quite easy in terms of getting a admission. But obviously, most of the people coming from a certain class and caste background uh, do have difficulties in terms of finances. There are several other scholarships that you can obviously apply for, especially if you're applying for a master's. There's enough funding that they also give, but Rhodes Scholarship is an altogether different game, definitely, because even if you apply for masters, they sort of also probably fund your PhD, because it's a 3 years plus 1 year thing, and it could also extend based on how you're performing and all that. So it's a Rhodes obviously is quite a unique scholarship compared to other scholarships that are given. But given that I wanted to apply for a DPhil or PhD, I did not find a lot of scholarships being very supportive. They're only either partially funding, but I have not even researched. So, like, if anybody is really interested in doing a DPhil and did not get Rhodes Scholarship, then I think you should probably look up if Oxford is your aim. Um, yeah, so after that, of course, I applied to other universities where I found I found supervisors who are working on similar areas as I do. Obviously, that will be one good way of going about if you're doing for a PhD. It's not really the university, but it depends on the kind of faculty that you have that really impacts how you write, because towards the end, your PhD process is basically between you and your supervisor. So you need to have that first figured. So I applied in US and in UK. So I got a couple of admissions in UK. One was in Cambridge and the other was in SOAS, but no funding. UK is not going in a good economic time right now. So the ones with no funding, I did not obviously take it up. But I recently got an admission in United States. It's in a university called Purdue in the history department, and that is fully funded, and they're paying me good stipend to live and also have some savings. So there's obviously enough options that you will find once, even if you don't get Rhodes Scholarship. Of course, that's not the end all. That's what we were told when we are preparing by the Rhodes Scholars themselves, that it's not the end all. Of course, it is not. And if you get it, that's great. I mean, you have funding, you go to Oxford, and you have a lot of support also that Rhodes gives. Definitely try for it. And obviously, the reason I wanted to talk here on this platform is that it's it's a thing that only students who are studying in Delhi or in some already established colleges apply to these places, because they're not rest of the students usually are not aware of these scholarships being available, especially people who do not have the means also don't want to apply for whatever reasons that they think that they are probably not going to get it. But there's no money that you are putting here for the application. It's free. So just apply and see how your luck is going to work out. Obviously, there are several Rhodes Scholars whom you can email and ask you questions, and they'll be kind to talk to you. And I'll highly encourage everybody to apply. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's actually so true. Even when I was applying to Oxford, I just didn't know the Rhodes Scholarship existed.
Okay.
And given how early it happens, by the time you're applying, everything is over. So yeah, that was a really insightful conversation. I just had one small question. When you were going, I think after I got in and I was talking to people, I heard about a lot of conscious and unconscious bias in the Rhodes Scholarship itself. With the interview panel, did you feel like there was something while you were applying?
Yeah. Of course, there is going to be a sort of bias, but yeah, a lot of Rhodes scholars, I mean, not the ones who got selected, but the ones who did not get selected have come out and talked about how their, the way interview happened was not quite sensitive, if I can say that. So yeah, there are a lot of experiences I've heard of, and there's a lot of content on Twitter you can still find who write against Rhodes. Of course, Rhodes in itself is a Rhodes is a person, a colonial sort of a who sort of extracted diamonds, and we all know Rhodes history. Basically, just look up, and there is even the Rhodes Scholarship has this entire page saying that we also support scholars who are against Rhodes himself, because these are change times, and we do support this kind of newly emerging understanding of whatever Rhodes stands for. But again, obviously there are biases here in terms of how the, I mean, the kind of class caste proportion, if you see, that's one thing that keeps coming up every other time the Rhodes Scholars names are released. So yes, these things have been there, but the only way, of course, to fight is to apply. If more Bahujan, queer people, Muslims, if we all apply, I think that way sort of, there's no way that they're going to deny us. Probably not now. I'm just hopeful that at some point it's going to go away. That's why I think Project Edu Access is also doing a good work there. They really mentor you. Like, you have a mentor who actually looks at all of your applications and tells where it is all going wrong or how you can improve. So there are such platforms. I just know one. You can go and approach them and they'll be really kind, especially if you come from any marginal section. Then you are most welcome to sort of approach them or me, and I'll be really glad to sort of help you through the process.
Thank you so much. This was a very, very nice interview, and I'm sorry for everything that happened.
No, that's totally fine. Clearly,
so
this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you. I have a nice day and congratulations. I hope you have a lot of fun in the US.
Yeah. A lot of reading in the US. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
So much.